Hey guys, I don't know why the screen is super bright, but I just wanted to, I guess I felt like God was like make a video. So I just want to pray first. Heavenly Father, I just pray, Lord, that you would heal our hearts today of any abandonment issues. Continue to heal us and reveal to us, expose those part of our hearts that are hurting. And yeah. You are not alone. You are not alone. I am here for you, my child. You are not alone. You are not alone. I am here for you, my child. Um, so yeah, I just felt like God was speaking that, and God has been actually revealing a lot of emotional trauma and abandonment issues that I have. And so like that super triggered me, and I was like, okay, I was like crying, like, what's going on, God? So last night I had a dream where like basically my brother came home and then he was like packing up really fast and leaving. And so when I woke up, and it was like that the other guy was saying like, "Oh, like what's wrong?" And I was like, "Oh, my brother got married secretly and didn't tell me." And I realized like, "Oh my gosh, when people get married, like I've had a best friend get married and she basically like moved on with her life." And that really was triggering my abandonment issues because I wasn't able to process it. It was just like, okay, now I'm married and I don't talk to you because now I'm preoccupied with my husband, right? And I felt that way with my brother. But even so, when I tried to reach out and try to tell him, like, hey, like, it's okay that you're married, right? Like, my mom and I would be supportive of that. Um, he basically said to mind your own business, which really hurt me. So basically, that's the last time we talked. Um, And I didn't think that it affected me that much, but then I'm like, "Oh, it hurts that basically in our family, like, our way of communicating is avoidance, and that's kind of been the thing." So, like, instead of talking about things and being like, "Oh, I'm hurt," it's like, "Oh, let me just disappear for 5 years and not talk to you." And that was kind of the pattern that I had even in my life where I can speak up about certain things. And so because I can speak up about it, I basically blew up. Like, so say like, okay, you did something wrong to me, you crossed something, my boundaries. Okay, cool. Two, you did nothing. Three, you didn't. So I would keep forgiving in my heart until it got to like 100 things. And then suddenly I would explode because, oh, okay, you're siding with your dad when your dad hit my car, which actually happened with my best friend. And so instead of like just being super honest about it, I would like pretend to forgive or pretend to be over something so that I wouldn't lose that friendship. And so that was really me dealing with a fear of being abandoned. So as you know, like my parents got divorced when I was 8. My dad cheated on my mom, and looking back at pictures, I was really surprised because I was like super close to my mom and dad. Like I was like, just like I wanted them to be together, but then they got divorced and all of a sudden we moved and like it was like this cut. Like I got cut off of any relationship with my dad, didn't talk to him for 10 years. It's just like you know someone and then you don't, right? So that basically made me shut down my heart for like a while. And then so growing up, I was really boy crazy, like extremely boy crazy. It was really unhealthy almost. But I would have fantasies about like guys being my boyfriend, and I would think like, oh, that would be the best thing ever, just to have a boyfriend. I actually didn't think about marriage. I didn't think like, "Oh, if I got married, I'd be, like, so happy." Like, I didn't think about marriage at all, like, it wasn't on my radar, but I did want a boyfriend, right? So, um, I was, like out of all the girls, like, especially at church, I was, like, super boy crazy and, um, like, I learned how to masturbate when I was, like, 6 or something, 5 or 6, maybe 6 or 7, I don't remember. But it was by accident. I was basically really neglected by my parents. Like I would be home alone, right? At 6 or 7 or 5, I don't remember. But so I would be home alone because my mom had to work and at that point already my parents were like separated, right? So basically it was just like I thought it wouldn't affect me that much growing up, but it did. I didn't really address it, right? So later on, what happened was, when I got to my 20s, um, when I got to my 20s, like I started getting attention from men, and I was like, "Whoa, like I can actually get a boyfriend." Well, when I was 15, that's the first time I had a boyfriend, right? And but then like I would say I was pretty obsessed, so it was, like, 3 months, and then he broke up with me because his mom was like, "Oh, you're too young to have a boyfriend or a girlfriend." And so I was, like, heartbroken. I was like, "Oh my god," I thought he was gonna be my future husband. I was, like, 15 then. Like, so funny. Um, but, like so then after that, I didn't date for a while. I went to college, I went to a fashion school, at my fashion school, there was one straight guy, so I didn't really have the time to be, like, obsessed over guys. And then, like, I turned 21, 22, and then basically, had another boyfriend, I think, for, like, 3 months, and, of course, I chose someone that it was like I was physically attracted to, there was, like, chemistry, and I think that I would be attracted to people who also had abandonment issues, so it would add to the fact, like, looking back at my relationships, like, they were pretty messed up, like, it was either, like, they were super clingy physically, but they weren't able to share what they felt in their hearts, so it was not a very emotional connection, it was more of a physical attraction, like, just like a when 2 kids come together and like, "Oh my god," like, "we feel safe together." That's pretty much how my relationship was with one guy. Then there was another guy who basically, like well, the most serious one that I had, like, 6 years ago for 2.5 years, he was so scared of abandonment that he would ghost, like, he would disappear for, like, 2, 3 days without telling me where he was, right? And then, because it was better to, like, be emotionally distant than to be close, because then there was that safety, right? There was a safety of, like, "Oh, I might not get hurt." But here's the thing is that well, even when we were together, he was not emotionally open or available. So he was physically there, but not emotionally there. So me having abandonment issues, like seeing that, I'm like, oh, I don't know what to think of it. But now looking back, I'm like, oh, I went through that for a reason because obviously, like, that's what I thought I needed and wanted. And I had emotional fears of getting close to someone, right? So it was safe. So I would find like I would meet people, not find, honestly, like I would just be uh like just drawn and attracted to people who are not available. So for example, if I was going overseas, I would meet someone and it was like this instant connection, right? But I knew I was gonna leave, right? Like physically leave to another country, go back home. So it was like safe to have that connection because it was like wow, oh, I love, like, the romance, it's like Disney, it's like a movie, like, it's like the spark is there, right? But then when I was like, "Oh, now" like, I would connect really fast too, and I would attach really fast, but something about leaving that country, leaving physically and emotionally was safe to me because it's like, I don't have to get that close to that person. I could get really close in an instant, but then I have to leave, and I would have extreme, like, emotions of, like, "Oh, I love you," and then it's like, "Oh, but I'm leaving. Bye." And then I go home and I'd be like I would, like, just I would be sad, yeah, and I would cry, like, have extreme pain, and then I would get over it and be like, "Oh, you know, on with life," kinda thing. So, that was kind of the pattern that I had, and so with relationships, I didn't really meet people who were steady. So, like, I felt like if they were steady people, I got bored, right? So it was like this extreme kind of desire for excitement, for love, for passion, because maybe, like, my life was just full of pain, right? So I also talk about this to my friend. I was like, "Yeah, I didn't really have a sensor for pain." Like, I would just go to the extreme. I was an adrenaline junkie, right? So, like, if things were, like, extremely painful, extremely joyful, like, to me, that was, like, at least I could feel, because otherwise I felt numb emotionally, right? So, um so I was just, like, researching about abandonment issues, so this is, like, medical news today. So, people with abandonment issues may experience problems in relationships because they fear that the other person will leave them. Signs and symptoms of abandonment issues in adults include always wanting to please others, being a people pleaser, giving too much in relationships, inability to trust others, pushing others away to avoid rejection, feeling insecure in romantic partnerships and friendships, codependency, a need for continual reassurance that others love them will stay with them, the need to control others, persisting with unhealthy relationships, the ability to maintain relationships, moving quickly from one relationship to another, sabotaging relationships, lack of emotional intimacy. And so, like, um, I feel like for me, man, emotional intimacy probably was my number one fear. I dealt with people pleasing already, to be honest. Like, I grew up like a mommy pleaser. I'm like, "Mom, she's stressed out. She's like on a tantrum. Like, how can I appease her? How can I like make her calm down?" Calm down. So when she was mad, I blamed myself because I'm like, "Okay, how can I do? What can I do?" And I thought everything was in my hands. Everything was my responsibility. And it's not. It's not my responsibility, right? But so there then started that codependent relationship with my mother and with everyone else, basically feeling like I had to fix people if they were mad. I had to fix and help people when they were sad. Like, feeling that responsibility was on my shoulders, right, to help other people. And that's on me, honestly. I do ministry, so like that so God's really been dealing with me on that, but um so basically I would get into relationships and like just have this like fear of emotional intimacy. Like, um I think 5 months ago I met my best friend as of right now, right? And she had these like guy friends, and I'm like, "You can have guy friends. If you're talking like very like deeply with a guy, like they're gonna start liking you," which is probably true, to be honest, right? But anyways, the point is, um, to me, I didn't understand like why you would get close to someone knowing that they were gonna leave you, right? I was like, if this is like you're overseas and you meet someone, cool, you have a connection and you're gonna leave, fine. But what's the point of dating? Like, oh yeah, I want to talk about dating. What's the point of dating, getting to know someone, and then like like knowing that they're not your husband, but then you continue to see them, like even hang out and stuff? I'm like, I don't get that, dude. Like, I didn't really understand that, and to be honest, like, God started to show me like, oh, there's actually things He wants to work out in my heart through dating, through seeing people, not necessarily like being romantic with someone, but even being friends with a guy, like, he's well, obviously showed me that the reason that I was getting triggered was because I felt basically neglected and abandoned by my own brother. So I had to break off basically a soul tie with my own brother because looking back, growing up, so my dad disappeared, right? Like he's like out of our lives, didn't see him for 10 years. And then after that, basically, like when we moved to America, it was like, oh, I have a brother, like he's my best friend, like we talk about everything, like we played together, like then it's like I realized that that's actually like this sounds super gross, but it's not meant to. That's actually like emotional incest because basically you're like he became my dad in a way, like I found comfort in that. But I realized like, oh no, like now looking into it, it's like I felt that he also left me. My own brother left me because he basically left our family. He left our family basically. And never really like called my mom and I. Just and then, of course, that's probably my mom depending on my brother as, like, a pseudo husband. Like, I know that sounds really weird, but some of you will understand when you have single parents, like or if you're a single parent, right? You have a son and or a daughter, and you start to confide in them more than you should, right? You're like, "Oh, my daughter's my best friend. Oh, my son is my best friend," but not realizing that's actually super unhealthy and it's codependency. It's also like I hate this word, but I'm gonna use it because I bought a book about it. It's called emotional incest. It's nothing sexual, nothing physical. It's just when you use your children for unmet emotional needs, right? So and that's nothing to be ashamed of because, like, everything that you've encountered in your life, like, you sought what you thought you needed through people, and that's okay. Like, that's okay. Like, we are all going through this together. Don't isolate yourself and be like, "Oh, I'm gonna heal this by myself." Like, you have to come into any kind of relationship, friendship, dating, or whatever it is to expose those wounds. So, like, when people are like, "Oh, no, you just gotta, like, be alone and self-care," that's actually a lie because there are so many wounds and traumas that will not come out if you do not get, like, triggered or, talk to people about it, like, it's not gonna come out. It like, usually will come out, like, trauma and triggers will come out when you get triggered and traumatized by people again. Like, the only way to heal an emotional wound is to come out and, like, be in a certain friendship or relationship or have a situation in your life with people where that occurs again, right? So, like, for me, that wound came out, that fear of abandonment came out when or that neglect that I was feeling came out when someone said, "Oh, I might never see you again." And that has actually happened a few times this month, even last month. And honestly, it really like triggered me, and I was like, I thought you were this person, but you're not, and this is awful. Like seriously, like a demon came out. It was just like, I thought you were nice, and now you're evil, But I think it was just like God showing me um, like people are complex and they're complicated, and um you can't expect people to be just one face, you know what I mean? Like, people have a complexity of issues, people have a complexity of stories, and, you just can't ex like, you don't know what people are going through. And the weird thing is, like, I will have situations in my life where in the past, I would, like, not talk things through with people and just, like, block them or cut them off. But then I've also had a lot of people do that to me. Like, they're just like, "I can't take you anymore." Block, and, like, not realizing that the whole time they were trying to please me, that they were trying to do what I wanted them to do, or maybe they thought that I would be happy if they listened to me or whatever. Um Or, like, they didn't know how to speak up, right? And I didn't know how to speak up in certain relationships. And now what I'm seeing is that, hey, like there's a certain issue, right? There's something that's going on. There's a thing that we need to address, like how I feel about what you said. And I start to address that, I see that it's healing for that person and it's healing for me. Being honest with other people is like so important. That's the number one key to having a healthy relationship. You have to be honest. Hey, dude, when you said that, it hurt me because blah, 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 right? Or like, I'm pissed because blah, 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 blah. Like, not overlooking like certain things. And I feel like people who have a fear of abandonment, they'll say what others want them to say, or they want to be nice. They don't want to cross anyone because they don't want that person to leave them or abandon them. And that's not a healthy relationship. In order to form safe relationships, you have to come out, tell the truth, and then be accepted despite the truth or in spite of the truth. That's a healthy relationship. Um, but I never grew up with healthy relationships. My mom was just really pissed off all the time, very controlling, a tyrant basically. So I was just like, okay, I'm not gonna listen to her, or I will listen to her to basically like um not piss her off, right? So, um, but then I started to speak up and say no to her. I started to express my feelings to her. And that's, of course, come with a lot of backlash because it's like, Mom, it's not that I don't love you, but hey, look, I don't want to do that. Or I don't like what you just said, and not letting her get away with it. And I think, like, now that people are starting to set boundaries with me, even, like, a part of me is like, oh, you know what? I just realized that I get that you're doing that, but then you never respected my boundaries. You never respected me. And I've had that happen before where, like, people will tell me something like, oh, I meant to tell you this. And I would be like, well, did I tell you that I felt this way about what you did? And then they're like, oh. So I feel like being honest with someone's so important because it just puts that relationship on a new level of depth and like intimacy. Um, it's hard, yes, like in the beginning of just like coming out and like being open and being honest, like has been super hard. Like every single person that I've come into contact with, it's not like like some of them are not just divine appointments that I never see again, which was really the case when I was like overseas. But now I have people in my life that are like, oh, I have to tell them the truth. And I've had people lash out at me, like get mad, all kinds of things. And it is freaky, it's scary, but then there are those who are like come back and they're like, "Oh, I apologize. I'm sorry. Like I was wrong." And then I have to be in that place too to be like, "Yeah, you know what? I was wrong too." And um it's not easy, but it is worth it. And I believe that, hey, look, if any of you out there are like, hey, I want to get married one day, dude, you have to learn how to speak your truth. Like, you cannot go on, like, marriage is not roses and, oh, everything's fine. Like, you have to learn how to speak your truth. One of the things that I also learned and realized about myself is talks about like if you have abandonment issues, right? Like realizing like a things that I came into view kind of thing was that if I really like a guy, I get really insecure, right? I get pretty jealous and I hate admitting that. And another thing is that I hate being seeming like I'm desperate, seeming like I need someone or want someone. Um I hate that because it's admitting need, and I think that people with abandonment issues like really struggle with that. Like, hey, I have a need or I want to see you or you know, and at the end of the day, like, dude, like it's not easy. But there's nothing wrong with admitting insecurities, jealousies, just being honest and being like, "This is who I am. This is what I come with. I have baggage," or whatever, like, just being honest because at the end of the day, dude, like, that's relationship. Like, you've got to be honest with yourself and with others and see if they're gonna accept you for who you are because if they don't, look, like, walk away, like, this is what I come with, and man, it just I think it's just helping me to love people on a even deeper level to be like, "Look, we all have issues, like, and that's okay," you know? So, Heavenly Father, I just pray right now that God, you would heal our abandonment issues in our hearts, that you will show us that you never leave us nor forsake us, but it is okay and like important and valuable and like essential to put ourselves out there into relationships and not fear that we're too much or too little, that we're not enough, that we just come into the light and like come out of hiding and just show people what we're struggling with and who we are and what the baggage that we do come with, the issues that we do come with, that it's not going to be too much for someone who will love you for who you are, that it is okay to be insecure. It is okay to be jealous. It is okay to be whatever and to come into the light and not be like, "Oh, because you're this way, I'm not going to love you. Because you're this way, I think it's like I'm going to walk away from you." But to find safe people in our lives that are willing to put up with the crap, but to work through it, to work with it, and to love us despite and in spite of it. In Jesus' name, amen. Uh, Thanks for watching. God bless you. Bye. Make sure to subscribe to my blog and if you like, someone called me. If you like to sow a seed to this ministry, I appreciate all of your support and love, and I love you guys. Bye.